The left hemisphere of the brain is the hindbrain, midbrain, and the limbic systems that are shown by this model. So the main base part of the brain is going to be the brainstem, which is shown by this kind of teal color. The brainstem is the central core of the brain, and then it goes in through the spinal cord. So underneath all of these parts, it's entering the brain, which is this part. It is the crossover point from which the two sides of the brain also relay information. And then on here, the second part is going to be our medulla, which is responsible for heart rate and breathing. This is shown in the orange color. Then we have the pons right here, which kind of lays over top, and it is responsible for your sleeping and dreaming, and then sometimes also your respiration and breathing rate, which kind of goes hand in hand with the medulla here. So another part right here, which is shown by the purple with the the almost nerve fibers, which is shown by this pattern right here. This is the reticular formation. This can sometimes be mixed up with the pons just because they're both responsible for a part of the sleep cycle. However, the reticular formation also acts as a strainer for the senses, and it sorts out what information is important and needs to be relayed to the thalamus. The cerebellum here, which covers parts of the reticular formation and the pons, is the main center for voluntary movement. If this part is damaged, it can cause difficulty walking or controlling your kind of actions and motions. Next, a part of the brain is going to be the limbic system. These structures are interconnected, and they all kind of play a part in emotion, motion, and motivation, which is all made up of the hypothalamus, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. The hypothalamus is kind of hidden under here by the hippocampus, which is this kind of worm-like structure that wraps. The hypothalamus controls the motivated behaviors, kind of like eating, drinking, and other internally motivated actions that humans do. It also controls your appetite and kind of if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, and that kind of stuff. So, like I said, this is the hippocampus, which is involved in the encoding of memories. It has to do with implicit memories, and they are all primarily involved with the hippocampus. And then when I said encoding, that basically means just transferring the memories from the short to the long term. So again, the hippocampus is super important with that. And then attached at the end of the hippocampus is the amygdala, which is this little piece right here. That's falling off. This is involved with aggression and fear, and if it's damaged, it can cause people to be aggressive and not have fear, so that can cause problems. And then underneath of here, we have the pituitary gland. This is basically the main control center for all of the kind of bodily functions, I guess. Okay, so the next part of the brain is going to be the right side that I'm going over, and it's the part that is in charge of the motor skills, the tasks, and then the visual kind of stimuli that the brain processes. The outside layer, other known as the cerebral cortex, is composed of 4 parts that are shown in the left and the right side of the brain. They are the frontal lobe, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes, and they all kind of play a different part in maintaining the brain. The orange piece right here is going to be the frontal lobe in the right side of the brain. It's involved in personality, intelligence, and then also how humans move and how they control their actions. They're almost voluntary. This little piece in the front is going to be the motor cortex, and this is the main part that controls the voluntary movements. And then right behind it is going to be the prefrontal cortex, which plays a part into the intelligence part of the frontal lobe, or the frontal lobe, and it also helps people create and evaluate plans and think deeper with reasoning. The top, which is the light blue, is the parietal lobes, which processes sensory information. This plays into taste, touch, and temperature, and how people react to all of those factors. And then a part of the parietal lobe is going to be the somosensory cortex, which is the main part of that parietal lobe that relays the information on touch, temperature, and how people process that. And that's located right here, right behind the motor cortex. And then also a part in how they kind of play into each other. The somosensory cortex is the one that's actually like interpreting the information and gaining it. And then the motor cortex is the one that actually acts out on it and creates the motion in the body. The occipital lobe processes and then responds to visual stimuli. It actually like interprets the information that the eyes are seeing. And then last we have the temporal lobe, which has the fusiform gyrus in it. And then this part specifically is the part that, if it's damaged, can cause face blindness. If it's damaged, people are unable to recognize faces, and the only thing that can kind of do that for them is to point out like key features, like maybe like hair length or certain like mannerisms and things like that. So if the fusiform gyrus in the temporal lobe is damaged, that's what causes face blindness. And then also in both of the lobes, these little black dots are going to be the association areas. All 4 lobes have these areas, and they're involved in higher mental processes and functions that all kind of play into like a human's well-being, like thinking, learning, remembering, and all that stuff.
Also, in the left hemisphere, the Broca's area is located in the frontal lobe, and the Broca's area is the motor cortex and is responsible for the areas of face used for speaking. So this means that damage can cause people to speak slowly or like broken. The Wernicke area is located in the temporal lobe on the left hemisphere. Damage to this area may make it difficult for people to understand speech, and speech is like often meaningless, so it's like talking to a baby kinda. Overall, the left side of the brain controls language and speech for humans.